every single thing they want, they will say, we don't want it. It's pure obstruction. Our issue is strong borders, no crime. Their issue is open borders. Let MS-13 all over our country.
Anything that serves the American people and protects us, the Democrats are adamantly opposed to.
Protests and rallies held across the country as the battle over immigration reaches a boiling point.
Why are you stopping the bus? This is to make a point that they need to leave children alone.
White House Press Secretary Sarah Sanders says she was asked to leave a restaurant in Lexington, Virginia, because she works for President Trump.
Political debate has devolved into political harassment and outright political abuse.
Let's leave it for Trump. Let's leave North Korea for Trump. Let's leave trade for Trump. Let's leave immigration for Trump. They left us a lot, but I'm actually having a good time. Thank you.
We need more Keith Urban, because you know what? It's now officially summer.
Yeah, it is.
And one of my favorite parts about summer is country. You know,
Country
you think
music?
about, Kenny Chesney, Keith Urban, you got the windows down, Florida Georgia Line.
Yeah, that's good. You know my
Boy,
favorite
the
part?
best weather.
Pink suits.
Oh, really?
Yeah, well, like when you wear a seersucker.
Well, I live next to PNC Bank on the exit 118 on the Garden State Parkway in New Jersey. Last night there was a Poison concert. It played all night. I could hear it from my house.
Should America go visit?
That's why I'm drinking
Exit 118 on the Garden State Parkway. You
Exit
really want to
118,
do that?
That's the closest I will give you to my address at this point, but that's why I'm drinking Alka-Seltzer, not coffee.
Are you going to make it through the 4-hour show?
I'm going to try.
Yeah?
Will you have
Alka-Seltzer
Sarah
to the
Sanders over
rescue.
for dinner?
I would always have
You
Sarah
would?
Sanders.
Okay.
Yeah.
100%. She is wonderful.
That is where we begin, because that is exactly what happened on Friday night. If you were watching or reading the news yesterday, you saw what happened. Sarah Huckabee Sanders went to dinner in Lexington, Virginia, at a restaurant called the Red Hen. Apparently, the owner came up to her and asked her if she would leave. She graciously said, okay.
She was there with 7 other people, right? Like a large group.
Yeah, and the
They had
owner
an
got a
appetizer?
vote from the employees, and I guess they all voted together, saying that they agreed that she should be kicked
They
out of
actually
that
took a
restaurant.
vote on it.
Yeah, so here's what Sarah Huckabee Sanders tweeted out about it. She said, last night, I was told by the owner of Red Hen in Lexington, Virginia, to leave because I work for the president. I politely left. Her actions say far more about her than about me. I always do my best to treat people, including those I disagree with, respectfully, and will continue to do so. One quick thing I will say about Sarah Huckabee Sanders, because we so often on the show talk about moments where she's attacked. Most recently, the White House Correspondents' Dinner, when it was pretty ugly, pretty terrible. She sat there and she took it. She could have walked out of that room. President Trump said if he were in her position, he would have walked right out. She takes it with class, and she continues to get nailed by so many different people. And that most recent instance on Friday night, still handling it with class.
She is very graceful, there's no doubt. Well, the owner of that restaurant, we'll hear her side here, Stephanie Wilkinson, the owner of the Red Hen. This is what she says about why she kicked the press secretary out of her restaurant. Remember, Sarah Huckabee Sanders wasn't like throwing food, she was just eating there. She said, I explained that the restaurant has certain standards that I feel it has to uphold, such as honesty and compassion and cooperation. I said, I'd like to ask you to leave. Absolutely, yes. I would have done the same thing again. The Red Hen owner said, we just felt there are moments in time when people need to live their convictions. This appeared to be one.
This was some dramatic moment in history for this restaurant owner. Give me a break. Look, conservatives need to be consistent when they said many times that if a bakery did not want to bake a cake for a gay wedding, they had that right. The Supreme Court has basically affirmed that right. It's not about freedom. It's about class. It's about,
It's about decency. And we've lost apparently all of that in this country at this point, because if you are a Trump supporter, we played sound yesterday from Donnie Deutsch about if you are a Trump supporter, you are the problem.
Right.
You put everyone in the same bucket. When you are press secretary, by the way, that is your job. You represent that administration. You are the spokesperson. But I guarantee every single press person that has worked for an administration does not agree with every single thing that their boss does and that their boss says. I don't agree with everything that my husband says. My husband does. But that is her job, and I think she does a great job of it, and she's very strong in that role.
And I'll tell you, the business gets to do what they want. I totally agree, Ed. If they don't want to serve somebody, this is America. It's a private company. They can do what they want. But the left has gone and lost their mind. I mean, Viva la Resistance
supposed to be about tolerance
has
and
infiltrated everything, right? She is seen as complicit You remember the whole Saturday Night Live Ivanka Trump from 20, and now she's in the public square in the briefing room being attacked daily by reporters. And that has to go now into the private realm of a restaurant. It's because, honestly, the left sees ICE as Nazis. Yeah. They see Trump as Hitler, detention facilities as concentration camps. Yeah. And this is about leadership. Leadership actually matters. When Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer and everyone on the left screams about resisting this president, it turns out their supporters, other left-wing voters, they're like, hey, how do I get in on the resistance? Yeah. And then Sarah Huckabee Sanders walks into their restaurant and they say, no, we're not going to serve you. Well, how does that? It does. It breaks down the basic fabric of our cities and towns and neighborhoods where people should be able to get along, even if they have different political views.
You mentioned being consistent. The same goes for folks that are against President Trump and the baker. If you're going to be against the baker, not willing to serve a gay couple for their wedding, how can you be for this?
Well, guess what? I looked up Nancy Pelosi, what she said about the Masterpiece Cake Shop in Colorado. She said it is a, quote, commercial bakery open to the public, and such services clearly must be made available to the public on equal terms as determined by an independent review of the Colorado Court of Appeals. So equality.
That's rich.
Freedom. That's pretty rich, right? Anna Navarro, you flip the channel over to CNN. She's always talking about we can't have discrimination in this country. We have to have freedom. Everybody needs to be treated equally. Unless you work for Donald Trump, there's a price to pay, she says. Watch.
People have seen this president lie and lie and lie and lie time again. They've seen him do outrageous, offensive things. Sarah Sanders, his spokesperson, has become the face of this administration. And I think, you know, some people are offended by the idea of baking a cake for a gay couple. Some people find the idea of tearing children away from their families and then lying about it morally offensive. You'll make choices in life, and there is a cost to being an accomplice to this cruel, deceitful administration.
You do make choices in life. You know what? I'm going to choose to keep trying to be a decent human being. You know what? That's what it's like. You go to Yelp, by the way, on this restaurant, and after yesterday, this is just a perfect example of where the country is right now. It has been bombarded with either a 1-star or 5 stars. No in between.
I wonder where it's coming from.
I go with the great philosopher Michael Jordan, who, when they wanted him to, at the height of his fame, endorse a Democrat in a Senate race in North Carolina, where he's from, he basically said, no, I'm not going to endorse a Democrat. He said, oh, you got to do that. You're a Democrat. He said, no, Republicans buy sneakers too.
Yeah.
It's also about freedom of business and say, hey, you want to have a marketplace that's open to everyone. Yep. That's what Michael Jordan said. And he's a pretty smart businessman.
Yeah.
And now this restaurant is going to have basically a divided restaurant like a divided country. How silly is that?
Yeah,
it's ridiculous.
Unbelievable. Let us know what you think. Obviously, you can see we are fired up about this morning. Friends at foxnews.com. Do you think it was the right decision, or should we all take a lesson from
this?
this?
Good on Sarah for having incredible amounts of grace and class.
She didn't make a scene. She just said, all right, fine.
She just walked out.
Meanwhile, the immigration story is not slowing down. Tensions running high as protests take over the border, basically.
That's right. Democrats visit a detention center for immigrant children as the Trump administration reveals plans to reunite all the kids with their families.
Our own Griff Jenkins is live in McAllen, Texas this morning after going toe-to-toe with those protesters. Griff, good morning.
Good morning, guys. That's right. You know, the temperature wasn't the only thing running hot. It was about 100 degrees here. About 200 protesters turned out here at the processing center. They were bussed in from Austin, Dallas, San Antonio, and Houston by LULAC, the League of United Latin American Citizens. And at one point, they tried to stop a bus carrying illegal immigrants out front here. And I got into it with one of the protesters. Here's what happened.
Why are you stopping the bus? This is to make a point that they need to leave children alone. This is not the America that we fought for and died for. My community has fought. There's no reason for them to do this to these children. These people that have these children in a bus like criminals, they haven't committed any crime.
Do you have a message for President Trump?
We're coming for him in 2020, and we're coming for his Congress in 2018.
And earlier in the day, about 25 Democrat lawmakers came down here. One of the questions I was asking them, guys, was where was the outrage from you in 2014 when they erected this facility with the same standards? Here's what Anthony Brown of Maryland had to say.
So we took issue with President Obama, but where we're really taking issue with President Trump is that he's treating everyone as a criminal. And you've seen a spike in the separations between children and families.
And here's the update on the reunification of families. DHS says about 500 have already been reunited, and that they have a plan in place to reunite the other 2,000, and they have them in contact with each other while they do that process. That's what's going on here, guys. Back to you.
All right. Griff Jenkins, thank you so much. Great reporting out there.
Thanks, Griff. Good stuff. You mean, hold on. You mean the kids were not placed into ovens and baked? They're reunited with their families? No, seriously, no, the rhetoric actually matters. You call it a concentration camp, call it what it is. You reunite these kids peacefully with their parents, who broke the law, by the way, by going across the border, and suddenly you're an evil person.
How much will that story get covered when they're reunited?
Exactly. Now that it's all fixed.
A little.
Okay. Oh, I do want to bring you some other headlines we are following this morning, starting with a Fox News alert. 2 police officers ambushed in an overnight shootout. Emergency personnel were called to a condominium near San Diego for reports of smoke. A gunman dressed in body armor shot at authorities through a wall, according to local reports there. One officer took a life-threatening gunshot to the chest, while the other was hit in the shoulder and is expected to be okay. The gunman is now dead. It is unclear if he died from police or shot himself. Also the Navy now identifying a pilot killed in a plane crash during a training exercise. Lieutenant Christopher Short was operating a light attack aircraft when it went down near New Mexico's Holloman Air Force Base. The second pilot suffered minor injuries. The incident is now under investigation. The 32-year-old from upstate New York is survived by his wife, parents, and a sister. So heartbreaking. All right, well, a GOP congressional candidate, Katie Arrington, is undergoing surgery today after a deadly car accident. The South Carolina congresswoman is in critical but stable condition. A wrong-way driver died after slamming into Arrington's vehicle. Her friend is also seriously injured. Arrington reassures that this setback will not stop her campaign, handwriting this note saying, quote, 2 weeks and I will be right back at it. Arrington recently beat incumbent South Carolina Representative Mark Sanford in the state's GOP primary. We will be getting an update on her condition from South Carolina Governor Henry McMaster on the show at 7:15 a.m. this morning. You don't want to miss that.
Absolutely.
Your life can change in a blink. Wow, our thoughts and prayers are with her.
A reminder of that, for sure.
That's right. Well, Florida Attorney General, or the prompter changed on me. I'll keep reading, though. Yeah. The mob mentality taking over the left. That's a sentence I didn't read at first. Florida Attorney General Pam Bondi now facing the left's mob mentality. Listen.
What would Mr. Rogers think about you and your legacy in Florida? Taking away health insurance. Shame on you.
Oh, man. And that's just some of the harassment she faced at a movie theater.
And it just goes on and on. Plus, disgraced former FBI Director James Comey now says he's so ashamed of America, he thought about posing as a Canadian to Irish customs officials. Former Oversight Chairman in the House, Jason Chaffetz, is here to react. Next.
Canada can have him. And after Press Secretary Sarah Sanders was asked to leave a Virginia restaurant, all because she works in the Trump administration.
Joining us now, former GOP Congressman and Fox News contributor Jason Chaffetz. Congressman Jason, good to have you with us this morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
Does that really surprise you? I mean, we can all sit here and say, yeah, it's really unfortunate. And we know Sarah Sanders is one of the strongest people. She puts up with a heck of a lot. But we're seeing this time and time again in this country right now.
Well, the Democrats have embraced the principles of the resistance movement. It's about a scorched earth. It's about hatred. It's about harassment. And that's who the Democrats of today are, unfortunately. They have embraced this. And I find it wholly ironic that those that preach the most tolerance are the least tolerant among us. It is absolutely stunning that somebody would do this and get up in her face with her family. I read that there were 7 people there that night. But Sarah Huckabee Sanders, she was the consummate professional, but she should have never had to go through.
Well, when the leaders preach resistance, you're right. The rank and file will at some point start to follow it. But we got to move on to some. You've been all over this issue of trying to get the truth from the DOJ and the FBI. Mark Meadows himself, the leader of the Freedom Caucus, is tweeted this yesterday, talking about whether or not there's actual compliance on this, Jason. He said new reports of DOJ FBI compliance with document requests are not accurate. While they have turned over additional documents, the new documents represent a small percentage of what they owe. The notion that DOJ FBI have been forthcoming with Congress is false. So as these committees try to get the truth, you've been there, you've tried to rip the truth out of certain departments. Why are they not getting it?
Mark Meadows is exactly right here, and you've heard this from Devin Nunes and Trey Gowdy and John Radcliffe. When I was in Congress back in 2016, I issued a subpoena for documents that still have not been produced to the United States Congress. There is a constitutional duty. It is the checks and balances of our country, but the deep state, they do not want to be exposed. They don't want to be exposed. They don't want to give over these documents. The trick they always say is, oh, we've given thousands of this and thousands of that. And as Trey Gowdy likes to say, until you have 100% of the documents, you're not going to get 100% of the truth. And on the heels of a 560-page report coming from the Inspector General, just scorching the FBI and the Department of Justice, they need to come clean.
Yeah. Well, someone is wanting to run away from this country, James Comey, who used to be a part of this mess. Apparently, he's so ashamed of America, he thought about telling Irish Customs that he was Canadian. He says, my wife and I were joking, not really joking. We wanted to tell the people of the customs line coming here that we were Canadian. And we were joking, but it's funny because it reveals a truth. I'm ashamed. Jason.
Yeah. He might want to check off with his parole officer first. It may come to that. Listen, he is on the receiving end of an Inspector General report where he talks about insubordination. Director Comey said that he didn't do sneaky stuff, said he didn't do leaking. Well, he does do sneaky stuff, and he does do leaking. And I think his legal problems are continuing to grow. The Inspector General is now looking at many of the things that are going on with the FISA abuse and the Russia probe. A lot of questions for Director Comey at this point. And it's sad, really, that he would say that about a country that I know he cares about and that he loves. Yeah. But truth and justice matter in this country. He can't just go it alone.
No, he can't. Maybe Canada would probably take him. He should apply for asylum. Maybe
Saskatchewan's nice. You can go there. Yeah.
All right, Jason.
Jason, good to see you this morning.
Appreciate it. All right, well, you've seen this video. DHS Secretary Kirstjen Nielsen heckled by the left at a restaurant. And look who says it's perfectly fine.
It's wrong what they're doing on so many fronts. These members of his cabinet who remain and try to defend him, they're not going to be able to go to a restaurant.
Maxine Waters got no sympathy for Trump officials. Is this okay? We're going to debate it coming up next.
Plus, we are celebrating summer with a pool on the plaza. Kurt, the cyber guy, is here with the coolest pools, gadgets.
Oh.
Just ahead.
He did that.
Heading to China this week amid military and trade tensions. China complaining about U.S. arms sales to Taiwan, while Mattis slammed them for placing weapons in the South China Sea. The U.S. is set to impose billions, of course, in tariffs, with China vowing to retaliate. And a historic election happening right now in Turkey. People casting their ballots in both presidential and parliamentary elections. The vote will usher in a new government system, at least they claim it will, potentially giving President Erdogan, yes, even more power. Meanwhile, protesters of the Trump administration's immigration policies now taking their message directly to Homeland Security Secretary Kirstjen Nielsen, even when she's having some private time. That was at a Washington restaurant. Then they actually went to her home in Virginia. Democratic Congresswoman Maxine Waters says this is just the start.
I have no sympathy for these people who, know it's wrong what they're doing on so many fronts. These members of his cabinet who remain and try to defend him, they're not going to be able to go to a restaurant. The people are going to turn on them. They're going to protest. They're going to absolutely harass them until they decide that they're going to tell the president, no, I can't hang with you.
So is this basically the end of civility? Here to debate, Fox News contributor Charlie Hurt and lecturer at the University of Maryland, Jason Nichols. Welcome, both of you, and good morning.
Good morning, guys.
Thank you. Jason, has your party just given up any sense of not just civility, but decency?
Well, I think everything that happens in our country starts with the top, and I think our president has abandoned decency and civility in so many occasions. And where you played a quote from Maxine Waters, we know that he's called her a low IQ individual. So if the Trump administration and particularly President Trump has the right to hit back. So does she.
Wait, so it's pardon me, it's Donald Trump's fault that Kirstjen Nielsen's being harassed at restaurants.
Well, I think the Trump policy is pretty callous, but that's not even what I'm trying to get across. I think that we do need to get back to civility, but I think the president needs to be a leader in that regard, and he needs to be more civil in his tweets and in his public statements. And I think that would lead to more civility.
Okay, let's
in
bring
public
Charlie
discourse.
in here. Charlie, is it the president's fault?
Yeah, no, it's kind of a stretch if you ask me. But, just look at this whole situation on the border. When you look at the border and you look at what's going on down there, it's turned into all it is a political protest using the most strident, despicable language, dragging children into this. What is already a very difficult situation on the border and turning them into props, basically, in order to push some sort of political agenda and basically accusing people who are trying to enforce the law, accusing Border Patrol agents of being Nazis.
Yeah.
I mean, my goodness, have these people watched 5 minutes of history on their television sets? It's not the same. I mean, it's insane. That's what's setting the tone these days.
Jason, on that point, what is the deal with that? I mean, to compare the situation on the border and not even compare it, but to use the phrase concentration camps. Millions of people were gassed and were killed. That is not what is happening with these kids, whether you like the policy or not. You'll admit, kids were not killed at the border. They were not in concentration camps, right?
Right, but they were separated from their families.
But then why did people in your party say that they were in concentration camps? You just admitted they were not.
The comparison that I've seen is actually to Japanese internment. Of course, we didn't kill people during the Japanese internment, but we certainly separated them from their families, and it's a shameful part of our history. So I think what people are saying is that this is wrong. The administration needs to act, and they need to think these policies through. I think the worst part about this family separation is that they didn't think about how they're going to reunite the families. And we're seeing this kind of discord right now. People are fed up. People are angry. And so we're seeing the protests happen at the border.
Charlie, let me press you on a point, which is, this was made earlier by Jason, which is this notion the president called Maxine Waters a low IQ individual. Why does he have to go there?
Obviously, sometimes he goes a little farther than a lot of us would like in terms of sparring with people. But my goodness, I mean, when you look at the things that Maxine Waters has said about him, it's pretty intense. But I also think that Donald Trump came into power in the most unusual way. He rode a wave of enormous frustration. I would even say anger. On the part of American voters who felt like, who have been ignored for a very long time by both parties. It's not just a Democrat thing, it's Republicans too in this town. And they've been ignored. And so he does sort of ride a little bit of a wave of deep frustration. And I think sometimes he lets it slip.
Charlie, Jason, appreciate the debate.
Thanks, Seth.
All right, good seeing you. Seth Rogen, meanwhile, bragging about disrespecting House Speaker Paul Ryan and his kids. But now he's lashing out at the snowflakes who are calling him out. Hint, Fox and Friends. And we're celebrating summer with a pool on the plaza. Kurt the Cyber Guy is here with the coolest pool gadgets to make sure you're the hottest folks.
Paul Ryan was walking towards me, and I didn't know what to do. And he came over, just grabbed my hand, and I'm shaking his head. I don't know what to do. And he said, "Can I have a picture with you?" And I look over, and his kids are standing right there, expectantly, clearly fans of mine. And I said, "No way, man." And I couldn't stop. And I said, "Furthermore, I hate what you're doing to the country at this moment. And I count the days till you no longer have one iota of the power that you currently have."
And the crowd goes wild. I guarantee Paul Ryan would have a different version of exactly how that story played out. Usually that's how it goes. There are two sides to everything. So we talked about this. If you're watching the show yesterday, we had our own thoughts about that, to which Seth Rogen, who you just heard there, had a response to us.
Yeah, I did. I had no idea that he was watching Fox and Friends or heard about it.
Thanks for watching.
I didn't know he was so prickly and,
so. This is Seth Rogen's tweet. He said, "Oh, man. Now my TL, which apparently is timeline, is going to be filled." I didn't know that. Thank you. Filled with virtue signaling snowflakes who are offended by my free
No, actually not offended by your free speech. You have every right to say it. We were offended by your stupid speech, which was basically picking on the kids of Paul Ryan That was the point, friend.
Yeah.
Are you a snowflake, Pete?
I'd like to think
By
I'm
the
not.
way,
I'd like to think I'm not.
for people who don't know what a snowflake is, because I was asking Pete this morning, I'm like, can someone just give me a real definition? Who are these people? Basically, a lot of times millennials are described as snowflakes.
Easily offended cocoon dwellers who don't want
easily melt under pressure.
They've always gotten a trophy. Here's my thing. I like Seth Rogen. Like, I like his movies. I want to like
See,
Seth
I don't
Rogen.
really know him. I didn't get a chance to see Dumpster Diving, for example. It sounds like a great
or
movie.
Knocked Up.
Yeah, it sounds amazing.
I don't care if he likes me. Really, Seth, I don't care. If I saw you in the airport, I'd probably try to take a picture with you.
He
You
probably
probably
would say
wouldn't
no.
take it with me. That's fine. That's cool. I just want to watch movies.
You know
with
what really
actors,
offended me
and I
was
don't
that
care
this
about
is
their
actually
political views.
when he said at one point in there that apparently these kids are like fans of mine. Like he's making millions of dollars undoubtedly from these movies. He's got fans that are kids, that are adults, and a couple of kids, whether they're Paul Ryan's kids or someone, come and say, "Hey, I'm a fan of yours," and he's like mocking. They're fans of mine. I make all this money, but I'm not taking a photo because I hate their dad. Like, just reach across the divide, shake his hand.
The biggest problem for me was the crowd going wild there, because it just
Wow,
shows that.
It's groupthink.
Yeah, but it just shows, like, is that the country we want to be? You know,
That's the country we are.
About,
That is. What's
Not-
what is it,
no.
Stephen Colbert?
Not everybody.
Stephen Colbert and Seth. No, not everybody.
Not every, there,
of course,
there are
but-
so many good people in this country that I think are so frustrated at the lack of decency that we are seeing time and time again, and that's just one other example of it. I think those good people, we need to keep standing up and saying, we don't need to.
So what do you think? Friends at FoxNews.com. Was Dumpster Diving Seth Rogen's greatest film, or was it Sausage Party? I'm not sure. What's your favorite? But also, are we snowflakes? Friends at FoxNews.com. Love to know what you think.
Maybe he'll respond.
Ed, clearly a connoisseur of his.
All right.
I had to look it up.
We do have
Dumpster Diving. Great film.
Let me bring you some other headlines that we are following this morning, starting with this. President Trump hits the campaign trail, backing Nevada's Republican Senator Dean Heller. His opponent is Democratic Senate candidate Jackie Rosen. The president dubbing her with a new nickname while speaking at the state's GOP convention. Listen.
That's what they call her, Wacky Jackie. That's what you want for your senator? She wants to raise taxes. She's campaigning with Elizabeth Warren, sometimes referred to affectionately, of course, as Pocahontas.
Well, Rosen firing right back, saying, quote, the president is attacking me with lies and petty insults because I'm not afraid to stand up to him. And violent threats against the U.S. are vanishing North Korea and getting rid of its anti-American propaganda. That is according to reports. The isolated government now replacing posters and souvenirs showing brutal attacks on American soldiers with messages of Korean unification. Even state media apparently stopped reporting anti-U.S. news. The sign of goodwill comes amid President Trump's historic summit with Kim Jong-un. And this isn't very neighborly. Leftists heckling Florida Attorney General Pam Bondi at a documentary on children's TV host Mr. Rogers.
What would Mr. Rogers think about you and your legacy in Florida? Taking away health insurance. Shame on you.
Wow. The protesters upset over Florida's decision to join a lawsuit against the Affordable Care Act and Bondi's stance on immigration. She had to be escorted from the Tampa theater by a police. Unbelievable. Those are your headlines. Throwing it out now to Rick. Rick, it is a beautiful day out now, and it's officially summer. We can now celebrate.
It's true, although it feels like spring or fall again. A little bit chilly, but I tell you what, everybody, at least across the eastern part of the country, getting some showers today, unfortunately. Take a look at the weather map, show you what's going on. Here's your temps warming up a little bit from where we were yesterday across the northern tier, where we had such kind of a really chilly, raw day out there. We're also going to be watching some scattered showers and storms, especially anywhere east of the Rockies. As the day heats up, it's humid, and that makes for some summer storms. They could be severe right across parts of the Central Plains, Kansas, and Oklahoma. So we'll watch for that.
All right, Rick.
Thanks, Rick. Appreciate it.
Appreciate that. We're getting ready for summer.
Well, are you ready for some poolside fun this summer, Ed?
Well, we've got you covered with the best pool gadgets and accessories with Kurt the Cyber Guy. Good to see you.
So much fun ready for the summer, but before the fun begins, you want to be tuned into the technology that keeps your family all safe. Take a look at this very cool alarm that you can put into any size pool, whether it's above ground or below built-in pool, and it is called the Pool Patrol. You put it inside the pool, and it looks like that little blue cylinder, and it actually notices if a small child or a pet falls in the pool, and it sounds an alarm, and it'll also sound an alarm inside the house. That sells for about $239, and some people say that that is worth every single penny.
Literally the biggest fear
Isn't it?
Yeah,
Isn't it?
absolutely.
And Ed Henry, what are you holding? Because that's my
You
iPad.
need to waterproof electronics. I was told
That's
I could
what it-
drop this in here.
Don't drop it,
All
just
right.
dunk it. Let's see if it really works.
See? So you
This
gotta
is from
swim.
LifeProof.
So what do you do?
Virtually every tablet on the
Oh,
market,
that also
every
is my
phone on the
biggest
market
fear.
is going to let you waterproof it, and you can actually go submersible for an extended period of
So
time.
where
So it's
does
still
it
working.
cover it, or where?
It does. So great engineers behind this company at LifeProof, and they end
I
up
don't even notice
making it so
anything.
it's sealed. But that's, by the way, not even that's the actual screen cover. That's not.
By the way, what's
cover
that
cover.
email?
No cover on it.
There you go. And we jump to this other thing because the Kingston Bolt in my pocket is
Yeah,
like
what do you
the
got?
savior for the summer because when you're out having fun,
That doesn't sound right.
I turned it to my key ring with a bottle opener, but you open this up, and this tiny little thing called the Kingston Bolt will let you offload photos and videos. Up to 32,000 photos this will hold for the larger scale one. They start at $59.99 and go up to about $120. Kingston Bolt is my go-to favorite gadget for the iPhone,
It's the
period.
smallest dongle I've ever seen.
There you go.
Very
Yeah,
tiny.
and it fits into any lightning port. It just goes bam
All right.
like that.
These speakers?
These speakers, well, we'll talk about this one right here.
They also
This
have water on them.
Has so much sound to it. Just listen to this. And then would you ever do
the best
this?
song, too.
Would you ever do this?
Oh!
Let's see if it comes up and talks to us. Yep.
Is it going to work?
It is still working, but it's far away
There it
from
is.
us. But you can just toss these into the pool.
Can we toss
and
this
they'll
in?
just keep going. Don't toss my iPad. And then this one is when you're really ready to crank up the party. This is from EcoX Gear. This is a 100-watt speaker on the go,
Is that a
50
can
hours
opener
of
on the
use.
side too?
Jeez.
See it.
Wow.
Yeah. Let's just see.
There you go.
This
You know who to party with.
So
All
this
right.
right here is called the Eco Builder Plus. Got a bottle
I see
opener on the
people
side.
walking down the street with this.
What?
No!
It's waterproof.
Well, we want
Wow,
to thank
Kurt.
Best Way for this awesome pool.
This guy does his research.
Thank you to Kurt the Cyber Guy as well.
Kurt, just in
Well
time
done.
for the party.
All right, back inside to Abby.
Thanks, guys. And no one's even in the pool. All right,
yet.
coming up on the show, one pastor challenging believers to rethink their idea of faith by telling them to quit church. He is joining us to explain. And business owners in Nevada praising President Trump for tax cuts. Two of them on stage with the president. Join us live next.
We appreciate your efforts for the tax cuts under your leadership, and thank you for the boost in money in all of our pockets.
Well, President Trump lighting up Vegas, touting tax cuts at an economic roundtable on Saturday. Listen.
Nobody's cut regulations like we have. Nobody's created tax cuts like we have. We've done a lot of work in a very short period of time. And, you know, the bottom line is America is open for business.
We appreciate your efforts for the tax cuts under your leadership, and thank you for the boost in money in all of our pockets.
Now, that business owner joins us now. Silver State Hay owner Richard Slider and co-owner Lisa Slider are here with more on their meeting with President Trump. Thank you both for getting up early with us in Las Vegas. Big day for you yesterday. First of all, if you would talk to me about your company and how it has benefited recently from the new economic environment.
Definitely. We thank you, Pete, for bringing us on this morning.
Of course,
we're definitely
thank you.
fans of Fox. Elisa, how's the company?
We're doing good. We're doing good. We're a small business. We have about 4 employees, and the tax cuts have not only put more money into the pocket of our employees, but our family, because we are a family-owned business. So that's made a huge difference to us.
We kind of felt like the small fish in the pond at that table. It was definitely kind of overwhelming, and we were felt privileged and honored to be there with the president and Senator Heller.
But that feels like kind of the point, right? I mean, the president ran on supporting the forgotten men and women, those businesses that were not getting the benefit that they should have. And in your case, you've got 4 employees, but those are 4 lives. And those are 4 lives that now have more money in their paycheck as well, and a business that is thriving. What is it about the tax cuts, or what is it about what has changed that has benefited your business the most?
Just from the tax point of view, from the taxes for our payroll, we're seeing more money that way. And then Lisa talked about yesterday the boost in our economy and what our customers are doing.
Our sales have increased 30% in the first 6 months of this year so far, and that's helped us. I mean, we've been able to bring on my sister, which is another family member, obviously, to work with us, and it's helped me, being able to manage the business and have somebody help me. And
now, I presume, and I'm making an assumption.
We also credit that to the boost in the customer, I guess the economy, the confidence that our customers are having with money in their pockets. So it's kind of helping all around.
Sure. Turns out when you have got optimism about the future, you buy more stuff, including hay, thankfully. But I presume I'm making an assumption here that both of you supported the president or at some level on Election Day or at some point. Did you anticipate that he would approach things the way that he has, that the things would get done the way they have gotten done?
I'm actually impressed. I mean, for I guess his tempo and his ability to get things done so fast. I did vote for the president and have enjoyed what he's done so far in the White House.
And did you ever envision a day where you'd be sitting on stage with him?
No.
No, I mean, it was very overwhelming. And like we said, we were honored and privileged to be there with the president and surprised when we got the call from Senator Heller's office. My wife does a lot of work with campaigns here. Here in Las Vegas.
I'm with the Republican National Hispanic Assembly, and we've been working with the Heller campaign. And so when we got the call, that was pretty interesting.
Well, it's a big race out there for sure. Well, Elisa and Richard Slider, owners of Silver State Hay, thank you for your time this morning, and congrats on a successful event yesterday. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you again.
You got it. All right. Well, Amazon employees demanding the company cut ties with ICE, claiming the company's agreement with them is like assisting Hitler with the Holocaust. We're being serious about this. You're not going to want to miss this story. And one pastor is challenging believers to rethink their idea of faith by quitting church. Esther joins us next to explain why.
California pastor challenging believers to rethink their faith by quitting church, or at least the modern attitude towards church, and taking a more active role in their religious community. That pastor, Chris Sonskin, author of Quit Church, Your Life Will Be Better If You Do, joins us now with more. Pastor, great to have you with us. I read the title of your book, and it definitely catches your attention. But I love what you're getting at here, because it's the idea that it's one thing to go to church, and it is another to spend your life every single day to actually help people, to give back to your community in some way.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much for having me on the show. I really do appreciate it. And yeah, the idea of the book Quit Church it's not about quitting church. I'm not telling people, hey, stop going to church. But I'd be crucified. But it's not that. It's about quitting our approach towards it. You know, we've just our approach towards church and towards the things of God, and we just kind of, we're losing what it really is all about, and getting plugged in. There's so many things that God wants to do in all of our lives, but we miss out on so much because of our sort of casual approach towards really the principles of God and what the local church provides, and being involved with that local church.
People would say, if you don't go to church, though, how are you reminded to give back? Because you've seen the numbers. I mean, I'm looking at this Pew poll back from 2014, and it shows that just 36% of Americans attend religious services weekly. And those are ones that just admit that. Who knows what the real numbers are? And that was from years ago, and the numbers keep going down.
Right.
So if you don't go to church, who's out there to remind you to be better?
No, let me be clear. I'm definitely telling people to go to church. I think that people need to be in church. I think they need to be in a local church that they can get involved with, that they can get plugged in with. What I'm saying is it's such a casual approach towards that we have towards it. The average person last year that called themselves a faith-driven person only went 19 out of 52 Sundays. Not so many people are being involved with the heart of generosity in a church or serving in a church. And so what I'm saying to anybody that is somewhat going to church, hey man, don't approach it casually. If you think about it, anything that you want out of life, if you want something better out of life, you got to quit. If you want a degree, you got to quit watching so much TV. If you want to do better financially,
be genuine
you got to quit spending your money.
Yeah, exactly.
So you got to quit certain things. And so, man, we got to be more genuine. Say, you know what? I want everything that God has for my life. And so, Christian or non, God wants incredible things for your life. You just kind of got to dive all in. And I always like to say it this way: if you go all in, God will go all out.
Why do you see the numbers continuing to go down? And how do we, as a society, as a country, fix that? How do we say, more of us need to believe in something bigger than ourselves?
Yeah, no, absolutely, and it is. You know, back in the 50s, you know, they wouldn't even imagine having Little League and other things on Sunday because church was just so that important. And it just seems like it's become more and more casual. And so we kind of approach church and God at sort of the way that we want to approach it and the involvement that we want. And so, you know, life gets busy, things get busy, and I get all that. I really do. But at some point we have to stop and say, okay, God, if you're really a God that loves us, you're really a God that really wants the absolute best for our life, then God, we got to go all in. And that's what pastors, I talk to a lot of pastors across the nation, and that's kind of one thing.